We've all seen the movie The Matrix. It was interesting and fun on the big screen of the TV, but has it become a bit too real in your own life? Are you seeing glitches in the Matrix and trying to figure out what's happening? Have you been told that you've been tricked and that you need to fight against what they've done to you? The deception. Whether you're just beginning to notice, or if you've been searching for a more peaceful and congruent way to live without battling them, you're in the right place. I'm Ken, and I'll be joined by Eliza and Raina Stella. Let's explore together on the Liberty Ark. Welcome back to the Liberty Ark Podcast. My name's Ken, and I'm here with Eliza and Raina Stella, and we're going to be having a conversation over a book that some friends of ours wrote. It's called The Great International Heist, written by Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues. And how are you guys doing this evening, by the way? I forgot to ask.
Doing really good. How are you, Ken? How are you, Eliza?
I'm good.
Doing great.
Thanks.
Happy to be here.
Okay. So Eliza's going to do a little bit of reading, and then we're going to have a discussion that hopefully is interesting to you all. And we'll be right back to you after she finishes the reading here.
Episode 33, The Individual. In our continuing discussion of the components connecting the legal system, banking, and contracting, we now bring forward the individual. Individuals operate within this system as both participants and subjects. Their role is to comply with the system's regulations, often unwittingly agreeing to terms through documentation and contracts. By signing these documents, individuals bind themselves to the system, forfeiting certain rights and freedoms. The legal identity created through these documents becomes a tool for the system to manage and control individuals. Each document represents a contract, and by signing these contracts, individuals agree to the system's terms and conditions, often without fully understanding the implications. This legal identity, often represented by names in all capital letters, becomes an entity distinct from the living being. The system manages this entity, frequently referred to as a person, ensuring compliance and control over the living being's life and actions.
Okay, probably folks that are listening to us have run into some of these terms. I think most people that haven't gotten any connection to the alternative law world or the sovereignty movements or whatever may not have any idea what we're talking about here. But I think most people that are listening to us have probably had interactions to get them to arrive here. So a lot of times you'll hear that a word means something different than what you think it means. And that's very, very common within the legal world, that words that you use on an everyday basis can have a very different meaning in any individual legal sense. And it tends to confuse people a lot. Talk to me, guys. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well said. Because we have our like man to woman, life being, people to people conversations where we're talking about individuals and several and persons, etc. And we're referring to people, right? Mm-hmm. But when you get into contracting, as we three have discussed often, now we're getting into legal terms such as person, such as individual, which is actually a legal entity. And some people are saying, oh, that seems a bit sleight of hand and trickery. But no, the legal language is different from, say, the common parlance, so to say. And we have to be aware of it. We don't have to be afraid of it, but we do have to be aware. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And on this slide, the specific word individual, like you said, Eliza, is definitely a word that we shouldn't fear talking or saying or using when we're having a conversation with our neighbors, our family, and so forth. What takes place is when we're actually maybe going through an agreement or a contract, or that's where it becomes a little bit different and crucial to have awareness on, let's say, that specific word, but not being, too concerned when you're having just normal conversations.
Yeah, the legal system, legal system or
Ken.
commercial system, banking and so forth, is all what's called a form-driven system. It's all on papers, right? Well, now it's turning all digital, but the same idea. That's forms on electrons, I guess. But like if you go to the bank and try to open a bank account, there's 10,000 other people that have your name. So you have to be identified somehow. And so the Social Security number is what's utilized because your name with that number individuates something. And that's the big question. And what's the something, right? It doesn't really individuate you, but it gives a connection to you different from somebody else this name can compass, right? So the system has to have some way of isolating who exactly are we talking about? Well, you can't fit on that piece of paper. You can't fit in the computer, but they have a not live entity that's actually being recorded there. And that's an individual. In legal parlance, that may be referring to the piece of paper, Social Security number individual, as opposed to you who happen to hold that Social Security card in your hand. You might call yourself an individual, but in a contracting situation, in a legal situation in court, that may have a very different distinction between those two, you and that card that you hold. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah,
Makes sense.
definitely. And I think when we say individual, just in common language, we're talking about one of many. Basically, when we talk about person, well, generally we are talking about a singular of people, right? We're not going out of our way to say a live man or woman being, comprising the people. But like your example there, Ken, of going into a bank, the way the system is set up, and we'll get into that here, is that they've taken basically with our contracting permission the live man or woman, right? And created a legal entity that we can then give permission for the system to utilize. Yes. And then that's I shouldn't say the trick, but that's the sequence of events where we need to be aware. Yeah.
In order to play in the system, you need that. It's often referred to as your monopoly piece, right? When you're playing Monopoly, you're the one moving the piece around, but you're not the piece. Right. You're the one moving it around.
Or the person, as we'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah. And again, that piece, that monopoly piece, is the legal entity.
And it's necessary.
The person.
It's necessary if you want to play Monopoly, right? That's the same way with commerce. That entity is necessary if you, the live being wants to play the game of commerce. You have to have a piece to play, just like in Monopoly. Yeah. So it's not bad, wrong. It's not fully explained to most people and can create contractual connections that aren't appropriate. That can create problems for you if you don't understand it.
The positive is that we have the ability to play in the game and play it very well.
Yes.
You just need to be aware and learn how to do it. Because we already have the piece. We have what we need to be able to play it and play it well.
And that's a concept that's used in many different, even in religion. You hear, what's the phrase? In the world, but not of the world, right? Same kind of thing. You're here, but you're not it. You're not that, right?
Yeah.
But you're here, existing and playing and doing what you want to do. But you can get confused of the in, but not of, because you can start thinking that you really are the entity that is contracted in as yourself rather than as a commercial entity that plays Monopoly, basically.
I think that first sentence here defines that, like we are both the participant and the subject, which is the entity.
Mm-hmm.
We are the participants able to move the subject.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, well said. But this unwitting, if we don't take the time to learn what we're doing, then we unwittingly get ourselves into contracts where we don't really realize what we've done.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the most important phrases that I've heard in relation to this is that the Constitution doesn't allow involuntary slavery, but it does allow voluntary slavery. It doesn't outlaw slavery. It just outlaws involuntary slavery. And through this confusion between the participant and the subject, or between the live being and the commercial entity that allows you to get bank loans and have bank accounts and all that kind of thing, we tend to sign things that to some degree enslave ourselves to the system.
Yeah.
And I think most people don't realize that's happening. It just is a conditioned way of living life that we're all locked into, and we don't realize we've locked ourselves into a slavery system.
Right.
And then we blame them instead of recognizing the only way they can do what they do is if I agree to it.
In all fairness, though, like we have to look at all of us on the call here, and probably everybody listening to us, is we were born into it. So it's really like we were conditioned. There's a lot of manipulation, a lot of propaganda and so forth as we're growing up. But we were born, and this is the only thing we've known.
Yeah. It's like trying to explain water to a fish, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much.
It's just so much a part of everything. It's very difficult to stand back and objectively look at what's going on, as opposed to just being in the middle of it and thinking that's the universe.
But I think it's so important that we do touch on the fact that we're here talking about it, even though we were born into it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did grow up and got, there was conditioning involved and manipulation and so forth. We're here discussing it for us to be aware that it does not have to be this way, and that you are a part of the system. But if you're aware, you will be able to move in the direction you choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the purpose of our discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we've all signed documents and bound ourselves into the system. We've done it willingly, even though many times we didn't make a conscious, willing choice. We just did what we thought had to be done. And it has an effect that most of us aren't aware of even happening. But it was us that did it. The system doesn't force us. It may make it really uncomfortable not to do it, because if you want something, sometimes the only way to get that thing is to lock yourself in and bind yourself up through contracts.
And as you mentioned, right, we got ourselves into it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to also discuss a little bit here is the fact that because a lot of us do think that it's them, right? Our emotions are hyped up, we're angry, we're upset, and it was us doing it. We need to be accountable for what we did. And when I found this a couple years ago, right? Initially, when I heard about it, I was very angry. And then I found Rebecca and Jonathan, Ken, Eliza, and Liberty Ark Podcast.com/White Rabbit. They have taught me that my emotions, I don't need to use my energy by being upset. I don't need to use the energy on being upset. I can play the game very well in a very peaceful way.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find, I mean, I started it that way and it was very brief. Like it was for a second, right? I was, because I was very upset. But I also found in the people that I ran into during that short, brief period, wow, they were very, very upset. They were probably more upset than I was. And they were simply looking to fight. They were
Mm-hmm.
simply looking to argue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the approach we have, you know, through the group we have, the community we have. I think Eliza, Ken, if you guys want to touch on that, but that, at least that was me. And
Right,
and I met a lot of people.
Eliza?
I think we've all, you know, the initial shock that there's a system out there that is distinct from us, who my spirit is, who I am, and then learning that the power that we have to interact in the system that benefits in a way that benefits us, because we were born into the system. The legal identity, the social, was probably created on our behalf. But when we became of age, now we take responsibility to say, how do I run the monopoly piece? Okay, and that takes some learning. But yes, there's a phase that everybody probably goes through, whether it's confusion, whether it's some are confused, some are angry, some are just overwhelmed and say it's just too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have to start somewhere. But when the introduction comes, you know, like you said, with meeting a community.
It actually is a shock to most people when they start recognizing how the system works, and then they can respond by different emotions. Some people get really scared, some people get angry. And with White Rabbit, what we do is we help people to peacefully deal with that and not be overrun by the system, but not be defending or attacking the system. It's a recognition of what is happening and choosing to respond in a way that's not aggressive or damaging to yourself in the process. Because when people get all angry, they're hurting themselves in that process, and it's really unnecessary. In order to hold your ground, you don't have to be angry or fearful.
Yeah, and that does take some study and a knowledge base. You know, it doesn't come without that. I will say that. But once you choose that pathway, it's very freeing, and empowering. Most of all.
Yeah, and I think we all have studied with a lot of different people, and Rebecca and Jonathan are the best ones I've found personally to present in such a way that leaves you a peaceful way to deal with things, as opposed to an angry way to deal with things. So, Eliza, would you mind just reading this last page, because this is kind of wraps the whole thing up, I think.
Yeah, that's the wrap up. It really says it all. This legal identity, often represented by names in all capital letters, becomes an entity distinct from the living being. The system manages this entity, frequently referred to as a person, in all caps, ensuring compliance and control over the living being's life and actions. And that's exactly what we've been discussing, is this recognition of the control, and then how we can move forward.
And how we can move forward in a peaceful way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it says ensuring compliance and control over the living being's life and action. But if the living being recognizes what's happening and objectively separates this legal entity from me, even though the system is trying to make you think they're the same, it frees you up and allows you to take your power back without doing battle with the system, because you recognize what's real as opposed to being controlled by what's not really real.
So it doesn't have to ensure compliance.
No.
Okay. Compliance becomes an option. There's a certain price for participation granted, as we've discussed.
Sure.
But the overall participation and how we participate, that's up to us.
Yeah. If it ensures compliance, we don't have any options. And reality is we do have options. We just have the perception that we don't have options because the system is designed to present that perception as reality when it's really not.
Yeah. Excellent. So if we are looking to learn to take back that control, this is where the Liberty Ark podcast.com/White Rabbit will be a great starting point. There's a lot of free information there, very peaceful, very warming, but very freeing, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of free, go there and you get a free account. You can learn without any charge up front and make your decisions if you want to begin to participate in other ways. Raina Stella, you've got to have some closing remarks. Oh, give me a break.
It is empowerment. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Signing up for that very first step, signing up for the free information, that alone is empowerment. And then you make your choice, your decision.
All right. This was good, guys.
It was wonderful.
Very nice talking with you again.
Wonderful to see you. Love you. See you next time.
See you guys soon. Love you guys.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
The views expressed in this Liberty Ark podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They do not constitute legal or tax advice, and they may not reflect the official positions of anyone at all, really. We want to express our appreciation to the authors of the unpublished manuscript titled The Great International Heist, on which the Liberty Ark podcast is based. Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues, the authors, provide courses that go into much greater depth and are available at libertyarkpodcast.com/White Rabbit.